Merry Meet. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are working a psalm spell today, and today we are working on Psalm 139. And Psalm 139 is used for usually for overcoming sadness and for being certain of our higher purpose and being certain of the omnipotence of our higher self. And it's also used for grief when we've lost someone. So that's what we're going to use it for today, because I know that there are some people that are grieving for the loss of a loved one. But you can use it for any kind of sadness as well. It doesn't need to be the loss of a loved one in death. It can also be the loss of anything. It can be the loss of a relationship or a job, anything like that. Any kind of sadness. But today we are going to be focusing on grief. All right, overcoming grief, I should say. So the way that we work these psalms is very, very simple and very effective. We take the psalm and we read it out loud all the way through once without stopping. We call this an incantation. And then we go back through the psalm and we get very clear on the inner meanings that we discover there. We go line by line sometimes even word by word, but certainly verse by verse. And just keep our minds open, and we actively search for hidden meanings within the psalm. And that act of searching is like plowing the fields, and we are planting seeds, and there's little seeds that are always inherent in those psalms. In fact, there's infinite amounts of magical seeds within the psalms that can be planted. And by planting these seeds, they actually take root and they grow and they bear fruit after their own kind. And so that's how we are able to work psalms as magic. And we're going to do that right now together with the Psalm 139. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my downsitting, mine uprising. Thou understandest my thought far off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with my ways. For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain unto it. Whither shall I go from thy spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and my soul knoweth right well. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret, and curiously wrought in the lower parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect. And in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God! How great is the sum of them! If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with thee. Surely thou wilt slay the wicked, O God! Depart from me, therefore, ye bloody men. For they speak against thee wickedly, and thine enemies take thy name in vain. Do not I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee? And am I not grieved with those that rise up against thee? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them mine enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. All right, so now we are going to just take and do the magic. We've done the invocation, we've done the incantation, and now we really, really work it. So we take it one verse at a time. Here we go. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Always very important. This starts off with, O Lord. So who is the Lord? The Lord is the Lord of the Psalms, and the Lord of the Psalms is the Godhead. It's the top of the tree of life, the Godhead. I'm gonna just do a little edit here in a minute. think this is kind of a nicer thing to have it. There we go. Edit. Okay. In fact, let's do this. Let's just go back. All right, so now we work the magic. So let's go back right at the beginning here. It says, "O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me." Well, who is the Lord? We have to always know who it is that we're speaking to. Who are we addressing here? The Lord is that top of the tree of life. It's the Godhead. It's not male. It's not female. It's not a separate deity. It is the source of all life itself. It's that which is beating our heart right now. So your heart that's beating is that power. That power is behind the beating of your heart. That power is that which keeps the planets on their course, that makes trees grow out of seeds, right? So that there is no deity. It's not separate. It's not distinct from you. It is one with you, and it's one with all. There's only one. There's one power. There's one source. There's one force, and there's nothing to oppose it. And so it's omnipotent. It's omnipresent. It cannot be thwarted. It cannot be attacked. So, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. So, that's poetic because the Lord doesn't need to search you to know you. The Lord is, in this particular case, the Lord of the Psalms, is your author. So God knows you better than you know yourself. Thou knowest my downsitting and my uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. Isn't that comforting to know that infinite intelligence knows everything? There is nothing that it doesn't know. It's got everything. It knows all of it. There's nothing that stumps infinite intelligence. It knows all about you. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. All my ways. Now, wouldn't it make sense to go to a force to help you that knows everything about you more than you do? Well, that's what we're talking about here. For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Knows everything. That's if you think about the Lord as being omnipresent and all-knowing, it's also, you can think of it in terms of it lives in your unconsciousness. It lives in that subconscious mind. That's why when somebody can't remember something, they can go under hypnosis, and it's total recall is completely available to them no matter what. It's there because that is that source. That is that power. That infinite intelligence is always there available. There's nothing that it doesn't remember. Thou hast beset me behind and before, and laid thine hand upon me. So when the hand of God is laid upon you, that means, remember, what is a hand? Well, sometimes a hand is something that's creative. It fashions things. It makes things. But it's also, the hand is benediction and blessing and consecration and ordination. And that's also when God's hand is laid upon you, then you are ordained. Nobody can do what you can do. Nobody can take your place. You have been ordained as a sacred priest or priestess within your own realm. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, as it is high, I cannot attain unto it. So God knows parts of you that are too advanced for you to understand in your current mental capacity, because we've allowed ourselves to be so fragmented here. We feel so separated, we feel so small, and we feel less significant than the truth of who we are. But who we truly are outside of all of that ego mind is so big that we can't even conceive of how big we are and how amazing we are. It's too high. We cannot understand it. Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? So you can't leave. Where are you going to go? There is no spot where God is not. You can't run away from God. You wouldn't want to, but you couldn't if you wanted to. There's nowhere to go that is not your perfection, that is not the perfection that you were created to be. If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. This is such an important thing. I think that everybody should tattoo this on their eyelids, because your power of choice, you can choose in any moment whether you're in heaven or hell. Heaven is simply the realm of reality, your true home, how you were created. God gave you everything. So heaven is where you belong, because that's where you're living right now, even though you're asleep and having a horrible nightmare. Hell is the choice that you make when you say, I don't want to live in this present moment. I would rather fall asleep to the present moment and either regret the past or fear about the future. So no matter where you go, God is still there. You can't help it. You are always in the presence of God. So help is not always like near. Help is always at hand, because it's already there. It's already been taken care of. If I take wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts to the sea, it's still saying the same kind of thing. You can't go anywhere. Even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. So the hand will lead you because you have been given that GPS system when you were created. You are never left unattended. We went way down into the depths of hell when we decided to separate. When we decided to contemplate the ideas of being separate and distinct from God, then our creative powers were used in a way that are unnatural. But we still were able to create with them. And what we created was an illusion and a nightmare and a dream. And now, but when we did that, God couldn't allow us to have free will without also having all of the technology necessary to get us out of the trouble that we made for ourselves. So we have this GPS, or the silver cord, as sometimes it's known as, with that we can find our way back, or Ariadne's cord, when she went into the labyrinth. So that labyrinth always has that thread, so you can find your way back. So even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. The right hand just symbolizes the hand that, for most people, since nothing against left-handed people, but back in the day they thought everybody was a right-handed person, But all that means is your dominant hand, the one that you write with, the one that you eat with, the one that you might hold your sword with, if you're a warring person, or a gun or whatever. So God's right hand, meaning that which God uses to create the world and to do everything that God needs to do, He will use it for you too. You're just as important as anything else. You're just as important as any other part of creation. It's not that you're more important, but you're definitely not less important. God thinks you're just as important as everything else. That's what that right hand is all about. Even if I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to thee. So we think things are dark and light. We think things are good and bad. We think things are up and down. We think things are in and out. We think things are dualistic. God doesn't have that concept. To God, it's all one. There's only oneness. And so God doesn't need to figure anything out to help. It's already there. For thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. So it's really a very helpful experience to know that God is truly in charge and not you. Now you can think you're in charge. You can think you're in charge. You can want to be in charge, and you can use your mind to think you're in charge. And when you do that, then you get the kind of world that you're living in. But it's very nice to remind yourself, it's not me, it's God that's in charge. Infinite intelligence is in charge, not me. Thank goodness. Wouldn't you rather have a trained pilot fly the plane than you? Thank goodness. All right. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul hath knoweth right well. So it's really nice to know that you are so magnificent that you don't even realize what you are. There are parts of you that are just so beyond your comprehension. And so all you can do is praise God for how amazing you were created. God created you. You don't even know an iota of what you're capable of or who you are. And knowing that you don't know that is such a powerful place to be, because then you can be shown. My substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret, my curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Okay, so when you were made in secret in your mother's womb is what this is talking about. When you were created in this world in secret, God knew what was going on. God knew what was going on when you when you tried to separate yourself from God. God knew what was going on any time we started to create all of these illusions for ourselves. God understood what was happening. And so therefore, God never left us unattended. Help is always at hand because God knows that what we're going through doesn't really exist, but he knows that we think it does. And so God's always given us a way out, and it's up to us to use that way out. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect. And in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there were none of them. Okay, so thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect. So again, when we are putting ourselves in the world of our own accord, when we are moving away from God and trying to create by ourselves, we are using our substance that we were given inappropriately. And God knows that that's happening and doesn't stop loving us, but always can give us what we need to get back, because that's imperfect. That is what's imperfect. Our substance is not imperfect. We were not created imperfect, but our desire to move into the darkness rather than stay in the light, that is imperfect, and God knows what that is. And so when we created our separate selves in this world, even unto our bodies, God knew what we were doing, and God still blesses us, and God still has our back, if you will, and can lift us up out of the illusion at any moment we desire. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God, how great is the sum of them. So God's thoughts are precious. Well, God's thoughts are the same thing as angels. God's thoughts are precious. And you know what? You're a thought. That's who you are. You're an idea in the mind of God. God sat and thought about you. And that's how you came to being. And that's how important you are. You're so important that you are worth thinking about. You are worth considering. You are worth conceiving. That's the truth. So all of God's thoughts are holy. And so angels are the thoughts of God, and you are the thought of God. Everybody's a thought of God that is real. Everything that is real is a thought in the mind of God. And a thought in the mind of God is real. We think that only things that are in the physical world are real, and thoughts are just sort of secondary. It's that we have it backwards. Our thoughts are what are real. And then the physical responds to that. Well, God's thoughts are perfect. So there is nothing more real than God's thoughts. If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with thee. So God's thoughts are more than the sands of the sea, on the beach. They're more than the pebbles in a garden. They're more than the petals of the flowers. God's thoughts are infinite, but that each and every one of those thoughts is precious, just as precious as the others. So it's different than what we think of here. In the world, when there's a lot of something, it means that it's not very valuable. It's only valuable if there's only a few. It's the opposite in reality. In God's realm, that which is valuable is plentiful, is abundant. Okay. Surely thou wilt slay the wicked, O God, depart from me therefore, ye bloody men. So the wicked, we know, we're talking about those dark thought forms that are trying to think separately from God. That's what the wicked are. And God will slay the wicked, because light always slays darkness. Depart from me therefore, ye bloody men. So the bloody men are those thoughts of attack, those thoughts of annihilation, those all of those ideas within us that are addicted to misery and addicted to violence and addicted to all of the horrible things. We are very attracted to things which make us feel guilty, which make us feel bad, which make us feel awful. We're attracted to those things. That's why we like scary movies. That's why we like all of those. We always want to look at an accident or watch the bad news. No, good news never gets ratings, but bad news gets a lot of ratings because we are attracted to it. We love that stuff. Okay, so those are the bloody men. So depart from me, O bloody men, for they speak against thee wickedly, and thine enemies take thy name in vain. You take the name of God in vain, not by saying God damn it necessarily, although that's probably not the best way to use your words, but that's not what we're talking about so much here. You take the name of God in vain because what is the name of God? The name of God is its nature. So all of the nature, every nature of God, infinite intelligence, infinite peace, infinite love, infinite, all of the qualities of God. When you are not acting and thinking and working in this world by contemplating and being motivated by the qualities of God, you are taking the name of God in vain, because remember what we just discussed earlier. You are a thought in the mind of God. You are perfect the way God created you. God really holds you in high esteem. And so when you are using your God-given mind, though it used to have the same mind that God has, right? When you are using that mind not to create like God creates, thinking infinite amounts of beautiful thoughts like God does, you are taking his name in vain anytime you contemplate that which is wicked, anytime you contemplate that which is ungodlike. So that's the power of forgiveness in this realm, is that if you look upon that which is ungodly and you forgive it, then you are transforming it. For they speak wickedly against thee, and thine enemies take thy name in vain. Oh, we did that. Okay. Do not I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee. Now, hate in the Psalms doesn't mean, I hate you. It means you turn away from, you pull away from it. You no longer invest in it. You no longer worship it. You no longer love it. So, I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee. So all of those thoughts that are hateful of God are those thoughts that would rather consider the darkness. Okay? And so when we say I hate them, we're saying I'm turning away from them. I'm letting go of them. I'm no longer investing in them. I'm pulling my life force out of them. And am I not grieved with those that rise up against thee? So when you notice parts of your mind that are rising up against God, it should grieve you. And that grief is holy, because it pulls you back to remember who you are, why you're here, and what you need to be doing with your mind. You want to feel uncomfortable when you're using your mind inappropriately, because then it alerts you to the fact that you're doing so. I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them mine enemies. So perfect hatred is the hatred of God. Perfect hatred just simply means a complete and utter dismissal, a complete and utter turning away from, a complete and utter abdication of. You give it up 100%. That's what that means. That's what a perfect hatred is. I count them mine enemies. So an enemy, your enemy in this regard, isn't something that you're a sworn enemy that you're poised against at all time in continual warfare for the rest of your life. The enemy in this case is just naming it as what it is: darkness as an illusion, and light. Therefore, you are no longer trying to protect it from the light, and then therefore light can shine it away, and you can see that it's not really there to begin with. So that's what we mean by mine enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. So we're asking, infinite intelligence, infinite compassion, infinite love, infinite joy, infinite beauty, infinite law. Search me, find me, try me, and know my thoughts. We want God to judge us. We want any time that we're harboring these thoughts that create bad things in us, we want to know what those thoughts are so that we can expose them to the light and they can be healed. We don't want to keep any of those things, hide any of those things away from the light. and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. So we want to know if we've got that wickedness in us. Of course we do. We're just human right now in this world, but in the other world we're perfection. So we want to have everything that is blocking us from our perfection as we were created to come up, so it can be shined away. And so when we are in the grieving process, we are going through so much of this. We are going through so much of this on our own. So much of what we go through with grief is exposing our own darkness. So when we are going through grief, we can see that there is a positive side to that grieving if we allow ourselves to use it, to turn to God, to have the grief taken from us. Right, so that the grieving is not in vain. We're not just grieving so that we can have pain. We're grieving so that we can remind ourselves to turn to God, so that we can find all of these dark parts of ourselves that we no longer want to keep, so that we can be more compassionate, we can be more loving. And also, when we find this grief, we're able to, when we let go of it, we're able to understand that those who have passed on are not gone. They're not gone. They have bodies, just not the same bodies we do in this world. But you will have another body when you die. And you'll have bodies into infinity. You will never be able to die, but you'll die to this world. Everybody will die to this world. All right, well, thank you so much for being with me. This has been my great pleasure to work with you, and I cannot wait to work with you again. And until that time, blessed be.